Council, overthrew the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, on August 27, 1985. As head of state, Buhari's isolation from the military was gradual but continuous. It started practically as soon as he took office in 1984. While he was fixated on purely political national issues with religious zeal, he was blind to the fact that specific officers were being quietly placed in specific operational positions to lie in wait like sleepers until they were called upon to strike by the very service chiefs he had trusted to run the armed forces on his behalf. Officers who would be crucial to Babangida's takeover in 1985 had been cultivated for many years, dating back to their days as cadets at the Nigerian Defense Academy between 1970 and 1972, when then Major Babangida was an instructor and company commander after recovering from war injuries suffered at Uzuakoli as commanding officer of the 44th Battalion in the 1st Division under Colonel Shua. Simultaneously, Babangida developed intricate connections with civilian contacts in business, the media, civil service, academia, and religious circles over the years, aided by the convenience of his permanent military posting to the federal capital from late 1973 until 1975, interrupted only by foreign causes. He even wrote his thesis on civil-military interactions at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Coup, present-day Plateau State, in 1979. Babangida also mastered the military subculture of warfare, charming himself to many via personal kindness and shows of interest in the personal lives and difficulties of younger commanders. Babangida's dominance grew as the Nigerian Army Armored Corps grew in size, power, and complexity. The Armored Corps is the Army's most powerful and decisive branch. The concepts of firepower, mobility, and protection are all incorporated into the unit. In fact, the armored unit is always targeted while fighting a standing army. It was once said within the army that whoever controlled Ikeja controlled Nigeria. The question of how to eliminate the armored vehicles at Ikeja cantonment was a thorn in the side for alleged conspirators in the army and air force who were even claimed to have briefly discussed air attacks as an option during the Vatsa conspiracy trial in 1985-1986. As a matter of fact, a major reason why the April 1990 Gideon Oka coup attempt failed was largely because the plotters failed to get control of the armored vehicles shed at Ikeja. Interestingly, General Sani Abacha, as head of state, in a bid to assert his grip on power, was sufficiently cautious of the armored corps that he redeployed the RIS and tank units to border regions away from centers of political power in the mid-90s. Ibrahim Babangida joined the army on December 10, 1962, alongside the late Major General Maman Vatsa. He began his career in the 1st RIS Squadron Kaduna after completing basic officer training at the Indian Military Academy, followed by a stint as an infantry battalion commander and instructor. As a RIS lieutenant in Kaduna, Babangida was involved in the Northern Counter Coup of July 1966 that led to the death of Nigeria's first military head of state, Major General Johnson Thomas Aguiyi-Ironsi. Muhammadu Buhari was also active in that coup as the motor transport officer of the 2nd Battalion at Ikeja Barracks in Lagos. As the head of a team of umpires at a Guards Brigade military drill in Lagos in early 1975, Ibrahim Babangida was also involved in the overthrow of General Yakubu Gowon in July of that year. Babangida's role in that coup propelled him to membership of the Supreme Military Council in the Murtala Obasanjo regime. Buhari was also an insider in that coup as the acting director of the Corps of Supply and Transport, but was not a member of the SMC because he had been temporarily transferred from the army to a position as military governor of northeastern states before later becoming the country's petroleum minister. August 27, 1985 was made possible by a significant number of general staff, field grade, company grade, and non-commissioned officers working at strategic, operational, and tactical levels. Others took part in the intricate game of deceit and disinformation that preceded the coup, while others were literally active in military activities on D-Day. However, as with all coup, There were overlapping concentric rings or layers of involvement, with the lowest echelons being brought into the picture within the last 6 to 24 hours of the operation, in some cases by being deceived about the true purpose of the operation. Key players in support of the August coup included, but were not limited to, Major General Ibrahim Babangida, Chief of Army Staff; Brigadier Sonny Abacha, the GOC 2nd Mechanized Division, Ibadan; Colonel Joshua Dongoyaro, Director, Department of Armor, Army Headquarters; Colonel Aliyu Mohammed Gusso, former Director, Defense Intelligence Agency; and Lieutenant Colonel David Mark, the Military Governor of Niger State, among others. In total, 22 key plotters were involved in the overthrow of Muhammadu Buhari on August 27, 1985. Despite having no operational authority, a number of military governors were part of the body of opinion in the military that supported the palace coup, reflecting the wide nature of the plot and near-total isolation of Generals Buhari and Idi Agbon. Nigerians became accustomed to hearing routine reports about this or that politician being sentenced to prison, generally for 21 years and often in parallel sentences in the months preceding up to the August coup. In the midst of it all, familiar news headlines of people being imprisoned for writing and publishing obnoxious pieces would appear every now and again. General Buhari, like other military dictators before him, made state trips to various states, but with less pomp and pageantry. He did, however, take a public 2-week vacation in early August and returned to his hometown, Daura. Shortly after Buhari returned to Lagos, his chief of staff, Idi Agbon, and some senior officials departed the country to Mecca for pilgrimage. Idi Agbon's underage son accompanied him on the ride, despite the regime's directives. However, fate beckoned beneath all of these to astute watchers. It was widely rumored in the diplomatic world as early as March 1985 that everything was not well in the Supreme Military Council. Some key officers even stopped attending meetings. Indeed, a rumored military takeover was speculated at least once before August 27 and then stated to have been postponed. In retrospect, it appears that part of the diplomatic discussion was skewed by military intelligence officers working for the coup architects. On the other hand, such operators were likely trying to gauge the mood of some key foreign countries toward another coup, while carefully separating the army from Buhari's head-on conflict with the United Kingdom, where many top army officers had private bank accounts. However, when Idi Agbon learned of the coup rumors, he dismissed them by saying, "Let them try." The palace coup of August 27, 1985 was hailed by some observers as an unusually brilliant operation. The truth is that coup plotted at the level of army or defense chiefs have a high success rate in history. It was not difficult to devise a plan for the coup de grace against Buhari after prepositioning selected commanders in crucial units since early 1984. To put it another way, the means had been put in place and the purpose had been fine-tuned. All that was left was the chance. According to several accounts, planning took place in Lagos, Minna, and London. The military governor, Lieutenant Colonel David Mark, allegedly supplied cover, guest homes, and other resources for such activity in Minna, the capital of Babangida's home state and the main location for the conspiracy. Lieutenant Colonel Tunji Olurin, the local brigade commander, was obviously not in the dark. Several groups of plotters and enablers, according to some accounts, meandered in and out of London, mainly around a certain apartment in Kensington. Finally, in July, General Babangida was believed to have tidied up loose ends while on a statewide tour of military installations. Dictatorships are like venomous snakes. A direct smashing on the head rather than a body scratch or a tail step is required to kill it. The basic idea was to isolate and arrest the head of state as soon as possible, cutting him off from the chain of command, neutralize potential sympathetic resistance, and simultaneously occupy vulnerable points like radio and television stations, phone exchanges, police signals installations, airfields, and civilian administrative establishments. According to sources, General Buhari initially traveled to Daura for the Salah break, but then returned to Lagos, right into the tiger's jaws. There was now no help for Buhari even from the international community, particularly Britain, Nigeria's former colonial master. It was clear that the Buhari regime could not expect any sympathy from that direction, especially after the diplomatic blunder of the Umaru Dikko kidnap and the withdrawal of ambassadors in July 1984. Although the coup occurred in the early hours of August 27, much of the final mobilization took place in the morning between 8 and 9 a.m., immediately before the Muslim festival of Eid al-Kabir on August 26, 1985. It was Salah Day, so it was technically unexpected and attentiveness was not at its best. The Eid al-Kabir is a day on which Muslims around the world commemorate the end of the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. It is the single most important religious day in most Muslim societies, marked by ram killing, merriment, gift exchange, and visits. It was and continues to be one of Nigeria's most important national holidays. From a military standpoint, the coup was basically a cut off and kill routine. To cut the federal capital off along that axis, one of the first acts of the operation would be the shutting of the toll gates along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The seizure of the Murtala Mohammed Airport's domestic, international, and military wings was necessary to prevent the Air Force from deploying C-130 tactical transports for loyal forces, as well as cutting off internal and external civil flights. The National Police Headquarters, Camp Salem House at Moloney Street, and the Lagos State Police Command Headquarters at Oduduwa Street, Ikeja GRA, were required to be secured to prevent the police from being used as a proxy mechanism for mobilizing loyal forces. Naturally, the radio station at Ikoyi was a key target. The duty officer that day was from the Guards Garrison, whose commanding officer was on board. Seizing the station, therefore, would be a walkover. The Concord Group of newspapers was also in on it, since it planned to aggressively sell the coup during the transitional period until the Babangida dictatorship settled down to dominate major state propaganda organs.
Get iPhone 16 Pro at Vodafone and save an amazing £414. Plus, save up to an extra £360 when you trade in an eligible iPhone. Ends 18th of March. Go online or in-store today. Vodafone.
To supplement these arrangements, the Supreme Military Council's Unpopular Decree No. 4, which had been issued unanimously, was to be tactically but only briefly annulled immediately in order to align the dictatorship with the strategic Lagos-Ibadan press. As Muslims prepared to pray at the mosque for morning prayers on Salah Day in the Ikeja cantonment on August 26, 1985, news reached key tactical actors slated for that night that the operation was a go. As the day continued, clear signals that something was going to happen began to emerge. The Commander Brigade of Guards and the ADC to the Commander-in-Chief all made efforts to learn more about the situation and prepare for the worst-case scenario. Lieutenant Colonel Sabo Aliyu, commander of the Brigade of Guards, was said to have repeatedly asked his housemate and fellow Kano indigene, Lieutenant Colonel Alilu Akilu, Director of Military Intelligence, if the reports were true. That Salah morning, they even went to the mosque together. Sabo Aliyu was apparently informed by Akilu that the matter had been investigated and that he had nothing to worry about. The purposeful pseudo-false information spread by military intelligence operators that Colonel Aliyu Mohammed was plotting something in response to his retirement and that soldiers should be prepared for internal security to protect the government contributed to the misunderstanding. In actuality, this proactive rumor and game of smoke and mirrors were meant to provide a pretext for the full mobilization of troops against the regime. Despite this, Major Jokolo, the ADC to Buhari, and Colonel Sabo Aliyu, the commander of Brigade of Guards, continued to shuttle a phone between Ikoyi, Victoria Land, and Ikeja in search of intelligence and to check on the status of units, unaware that they were being watched by military intelligence. Just after 9 p.m., riding together in Jokolo's car on a trip to Ikeja cantonment, uncomfortably close in time to each hour, they were arrested at the gate by soldiers under the command of Majors John Madaki and Maxwell Kobe, and they were stripped and severely beaten. In fact, shots were fired at the Mercedes car and its tires deflated. They were later taken and kept at the officers' quarters in Bonny Camp, in temporary transit detention facility, where they were later joined by General Buhari, Ambassador Lawal Rafindadi, and General Tunde Diagbon, when the latter returned to the country from Mecca a few days later. Interestingly, Buhari could not reach his Chief of Army Staff Babangida, having left Lagos for Minna, allegedly for Salah. Needless to say, his military assistant Major Aminu, whom he had left behind in Lagos to assist with coordination and operations, could reach him, although Buhari could not. By nightfall, therefore, the grim nature of the situation was clear to General Buhari. His Chief of Staff Supreme Headquarters was outside the country in Saudi Arabia. His Chief of Army Staff was away to Minna and was not returning calls. Neither could he reach the GOC of the 2nd Division. The commander, Brigade of Guards, had disappeared, arrested at Ikeja. He could not even locate his own ADC, who had also been arrested. The young garrison commander he had relied upon to deliver messages to Ibadan suddenly became scarce. The commanding officer of the 6th Battalion at the Bonny camp nearby, Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Madaki, was not on his side. The National Security Organization had no fighting units of its own. The chairman, Joint Chiefs, General Domkat Bali, had no army to command even if he wanted. The Minister of Internal Affairs, General Maguru, had no internal affairs troops of his own either, and was certainly not going to deploy customs or prison officers against the army. Units from the 3rd Division, far away in Jos, where Buhari held his last command before January 1984, were too far away. The die was cast, and all that remained was for him to wait patiently, surrounded by soldiers from Guards units of doubtful loyalty at the State House Sudan Barracks, until daybreak when the curtains fell. The rug symbolizing the machinery of state had been pulled from under Buhari's feet. At each hour, designated units in Lagos sped towards their objectives. Occupation of vulnerable points or fully mobilized standby status was allotted to officers and soldiers of 123 Battalion, 245 Riz Battalion, 201 Armored HQ Battalion, the 6th Battalion at Bonny Camp, and the 93rd Battalion at Ojo Cantonment. The 123 Battalion under Major Madaki in particular was crucial to securing the toll gates, Lagos State Police Command Headquarters at Ikeja, and the international airports, in addition to some key road junctions in the mainland area. Although most news reports and commentaries keep describing the Buhari coup as bloodless, it was not. The platoon, sent to the Lagos State Police Command Headquarters at Ikeja, opened fire without provocation at a group of policemen, killing an untold number in the process. The 6th Battalion, under Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Madaki, was charged with soft operations and standby on Lagos Island, including securing the eastern approaches to Victoria Island from Ekpe. The 93rd Battalion at Ojo set up similar observation points along the Badagry Road and in the port area. At the Dam Barracks, 4 young majors were detailed to arrest the head of state. They were Majors Umaru Dangiwa, Lawan Gwadabe, Abdulmuni Aminu, and Sambo Dasuki. They achieved this without much ado. In fact, General Muhammadu Buhari was said to be waiting for them and allegedly gave orders to bewilder soldiers on the premises that the unusual early morning activities of those who came to arrest him were not to be disrupted. Buhari accompanied his captors initially to Bonny Camp, from where he was later moved under house arrest to 1 Oxworth Road, Ikoyi. He was there for less than a week before being moved again to a house in Benin City. The deposed head of state had access to a television that showed just 2 channels, and members of his family were allowed to visit him only on the authorization of Babangida. Meanwhile, the official premises of the head of state at the State House Sudan Barracks was ransacked, and Buhari's belongings were looted by soldiers. Assisted by an unopposed entry into the radio station contrived by the Guards Garrison Commander, Colonel Joshua Dongoyaro's task was to make the crucial radio broadcast at 6 a.m., bringing the regime of Major General Muhammadu Buhari to an end. As daybreak progressed, Coup coordinators at Bonny Camp established radio communication with all divisions and brigades in the country to obtain situation reports and pledges of loyalty in their areas of responsibility. General Ibrahim Babangida was then contacted in Minna to return to Lagos to take charge, and arrangements were made for a plane to go fetch him. At this point, bottles of champagne were opened to celebrate the coup. A quick meeting of key plotters took place at the camp, after which there was a further radio broadcast to the nation by Brigadier Sani Abacha at 1 p.m., formally appointing Major General Ibrahim Babangida, former Chief of Army Staff, as the new head of state and Commander-in-Chief. In our next video, we'll take a look at the military and security implications of Buhari's overthrow, its consequences, and of course, the Mama Mvatsa conspiracy of December 1985.